I will talk to you of art,
Yes.
for there is nothing else.
Are you all ready to join me today on our trip to outer space?
Come along quietly or not.
You can have all the talent in the world and never get anywhere.
Some artist will bait a hook and let you bite upon it.
And now, without further ado...
Hello, folks, and welcome to yet another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. Hope everybody out there is keeping their heads on straight. We got a lot to cover before we get to the guest, so I'm going to zip right on through it. First off, some shout outs to some local businesses trying to keep their heads above water through all this. First off, the Main Street Jukebox record shop here in Stroudsburg. Tom is posting records on the Main Street Jukebox Facebook page, the Main Street Jukebox Instagram page, and his own personal page on Facebook. Look them up, see he posts the records that he's selling, and you could also message him and ask if he has anything specific in stock if you're in the mood for records. Second off, Broad Street Books in New Jersey. You can find them on Facebook and on Instagram at Broad Street Books NJ. If you want some reading material, put the Kindle down, give the Kindle a break, give the trees outside your window something to worry about, and go buy an actual book. You'll be thanked for it. You'll feel better because of it. Third, my buddy has started his own Jiggler toy brand. The name of it is now Wrong Kong, and that's wrong spelt without the W. You could find all the toys on the Wrong Kong Facebook page, and some of the toys are also available on eBay right now, right from the mold to eBay, right from him. So right now available on eBay is a Jiggler lot, which consists of some Devil's Reign characters from the film The Devil's Reign, a cute purple olive, and a toy described as What Is It? So far, it is up to $10 on eBay, and there's only 1 day and 6 hours left. Jump on that, and you can get some really cool toys for not that bad of a price, really. The other toy available on eBay is the Big Kahuna. This is the one everybody has been after the past couple of weeks. This is a Jiggler rubber monster, the creature from It Conquered the World, otherwise known as Beulah. This one is a very fun purple and green color. This is one of my favorites that he's done so far. Right now, the bid is up to $41, but I'm going to tell you what, these have been going for over $100. So if you're into old horror movies and want a one-of-a-kind toy, nobody else on this planet, from here to Wuhan, will have this toy. If you want it, jump in now while the getting's good. Okay, the rest of the news, I've been pumping out lots of artwork on Facebook and Instagram. Go on Instagram, at Albert Shivers. You can follow me there. I was just part of a virtual art gallery show put on by former guests of this show, Courtney, Sylvia, and Namu of the Create and Be studio. They put together a virtual art gallery, and it was cool. It was fun. There were a lot of fun artists involved. And, anything to break up the monotony of being under house arrest here. Also, I'm going to be creating a Nascar documentary. It's going to be short, no longer than 15-20 minutes at the most. It's going to sort of follow my introduction to the sport and how in the world a little boy born in New York City who was into art and jazz found his way to NASCAR. It's a fun little doc. There's going to be lots of cool footage, and it's going to be very artsy, as always. So the goal for that is May 15th. My goal here, artsy, I'm getting tired of that word. But the goal with this video is to take all the things I like, make a story around them, and just mush them all together like some big crazy video collage. So that's a better explanation rather than just saying it's artsy. And again, the goal for me is to have that out by May 15th. So that's 15 days from now. So I'm going to be working hard on that. And you can follow my progress on this also on Instagram at Albert Shivers. The guest today on this episode is Michelle Starr. She is an actress who describes herself as following her bliss. And on this episode, Isaac is back. Holy crap. Isaac is back on sound. And before you lose your shirt, we recorded this before all the cooties hit. So let's get right to the interview with actress Michelle Starr. And my special guest today is actress Michelle Starr.
Hello.
Thanks for doing this show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And yes, Starr really is my last name.
So I guess we'll start. You are a librarian at the local college here in Strasbourg, ESU, that I went to. And you've chose the path of pursuing acting as sort of a retirement job, or how would be the best way to put it?
I look at it as following my bliss.
Okay.
After a delay of the rest of my life. And now the second act is becoming an actor, which is what I wanted to do in the first place. But my parents were Depression-era babies.
Okay.
So they were all about, you need to get a job that can pay your bills and provide you comfort.
Mm-hmm.
So being a wuss, not brave like a lot of people I know, I ended up being a librarian and said, one day I'm going to pursue my dream, which is to act. And I did, and it's fun.
Yeah, and you and I linked up what I feel is early on in this second act for you.
I believe it was even before I retired from being a librarian. Might have been one of the first acting jobs I did. Okay.
So, like, what, do you remember the first one? Could it have been my movie?
It probably overlapped. I mean, I could probably look through my notes, but the very first job that I had,
right,
because I had no experience, I signed up with Central Casting, which is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they called and I said, sure. I was all excited. It was an overnight shoot. And I realized why they needed so many people. Mm-hmm. It was a huge crowd scene on the top of the building at Rockefeller Center with no coats on. And it was like between 30 and 40 degrees. And it was a 2 or 3 night shoot. And a lot of people did not show up for the second night. And because I was so new, you commit, you go. The highlight of that was I got a great picture of me with Jimmy Fallon, who was walking by. And he was very nice. Obviously, he was on his way to do his show. He was in a suit. And that was the beginning.
So I guess one thing from the actors that I know and have as friends, maybe you can go into, so it sounds like this particular part was like you were an extra in a role, which is how most people get rolling with acting. So most people don't understand a fraction of what it is to be an extra. Not only how much effort goes into it, but just the amount of waiting around time. So maybe you can go into that a little bit of what it's like to be an extra.
Well, being an extra means basically you're no different than a lamp, except you're self-propelled.
Okay.
You're providing atmosphere. And yes, there is a lot of waiting around. I've gone to shoots where they've never used me. I've just sat around chatting with other people and eating good food, because they do feed you fairly well on many of these. Generally, the more popular the show, the better the quality of food. And if you're lucky enough to do background on a movie, it really ups the amount of food. Yeah. I've had steak and lobster, and they have to-go containers. Who knew? But one of the nicer things about it that I discovered, I couldn't figure out why they had the to-go containers. Some is because poor starving actors. But some is that people were packing them up And when we were going from holding, where we just hang out until they need us, to the set, they had them full, and they'd hand them to homeless people that they saw, which I thought was lovely.
Yeah.
But most times you provide your own clothing. They tell you to come hair and makeup ready. Okay. And because I was in Stroudsburg, and the majority of these jobs are in New York City or Brooklyn or Queens, it meant getting up god-awful early, and you're getting paid minimum wage once you take all the expenses out. A lot of days when I started, maybe I cleared $15 for the day. But it was fun.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's on your resume now.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And sometimes you're lucky enough, on one program, The Good Wife, the second to last episode, I was directly behind Juliana Margulis and Alan Cummings, and so everybody I know saw me, which was really fun.
Cool. So, like in the episode, they
even though I wasn't,
awesome.
I was just an extra sitting behind them, but you could see me real easily.
That's fun. What were some other more popular shows or movies that you may have been in?
Well, I did the second Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which was very entertaining, mostly because it wasn't until 3 p.m, beautiful day. We showed up right near the Lincoln Tunnel. They fed us, and then they said, okay, now we're going on the New York waterways. We got on there, we went around New York Harbor, and every 10 minutes or so we had to pretend that there was some major monster coming and knocking down buildings. And what was fun about it was I made 1 or 2 friends that I'm still quite close with at this point, but we did this for an hour and a half. And like I said, we didn't need to be there until 2 p.m. We were finished at 5:30, even with having lunch.
Right.
And then I was on my way home, and I was back home by 7 o'clock. But I had a day going around on the ferry, enjoying a lovely afternoon.
Right.
I spent time on Jane's Carousel in Brooklyn, which was just lovely. Sometimes they're in beautiful, beautiful older homes. Or like catering halls. But it's this. I eventually stopped doing a lot of background work after a few years because I was getting more interesting things. Yeah. And what most people find fascinating is I do very little work in New York City. The majority of my work is in New Jersey.
So are there more studios there?
There are a surprising amount of studios, and 2 of them in particular, Concept Productions and TriStar Studios, do a tremendous amount of as seen on TV type products. And so people text me all the time, I was flipping through channels, and there you were, larger than life, hawking some product or pretending to be a grandmother, and they pay better. I don't have to drive as far. I don't have to pay tolls or a bus. But the first really cool thing that I ever did that was not background, a lot of the crime ID channel shows, like How I Murdered My Husband or whatever, are filmed in Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And I got to be the murder victim. It was the show Mind of a Murderer. Bad to the Bone was the episode. And they ended up filming it in Hackettstown, 20 minutes away. It was awesome. And I played the mother of somebody who eventually killed his mother.
Okay.
And they had him at 3 different ages. So it started with a 12-year-old, then a 20-something, and then finally the age of the guy who killed me. The guy was older than I was.
Okay.
And I just looked the same, from when I had a 12-year-old until I was being strangled in the living room. And I've since worked with him a couple of times. I did a job with him in New York State. And what was it for? It was for Steinmart. And it was on this beautiful property that it looked like a park. Somebody said that they think it was owned by the Kennedy family at one point. And he's been my husband in a couple of things.
Okay.
He played my son I'm like, at some point you're going to play my father, I think. But we've done a few jobs together, and that's always fun when you go and you see people you know.
On the ID channel stuff, so that was filming reenactments of events?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And that particular show, they were also interviewing the real people, which was fascinating. Obviously not the mother because she was killed.
Right.
But her granddaughter, her son who was on death row in Texas, Beatty was his name. I forgot what his first name was. I don't know. He's probably still sitting on death row, or maybe he's been executed. I did another one where I was supposed to have had my throat slit and a gunshot wound to the head. And they made me up to look like I had my throat slit and a gunshot in the head. Now, normally, I don't bother taking the makeup off because it amuses me, particularly if I'm taking public transportation. Because people who have worked on things that involve zombies or whatever say that they have so much fun afterwards getting on the train and people are looking at them, because it's not Halloween. But I decided I had to wash mine off because can you imagine driving down Route 80 and looking over and seeing somebody who looks like they're covered in blood and have a gunshot wound to their head? Yeah, no, that was not happening. But a lot of it is making connections. Like a lot of the jobs that I do in Jersey at this point, they just call me and say, are you available? Can you come by, Friday, and it'll be a half day, or this is a 2 or 3 day shoot. And I just go. And once a year, instead of doing TV or movie type things, I always try and do like a local play, community theater, because for one thing, it's really good to have to memorize lines. Yeah, I've had to do it a couple of times, for either theater plays or for my own movies that I somehow got rooked into being in myself. And you're such a natural in them. No, I try, but usually it's because someone didn't show up. And I'm like, I'll do it. Because I know I'll be there. Love it. I know I'll be there. I know that I won't flake out on my own movie. So. And you also know exactly what the character means because you wrote it. Yeah, I do. Like in the movie with the brother and the sister, I had an actor cast as the brother. I did not know that. Totally did, but he some issue that was understandable, like a family thing. I don't remember exactly what came up right at the last minute. And I picked this actor because he kind of looked like the actress who would play the sister. To someone just coming in cold, you could see them being related. So he backed out like a week or less before the first day of shooting. I had nobody, and I couldn't just pull, I didn't have a backup, I had nothing. I was the only person who knew the deal, but it was fun. Exactly. It was fun. That's the bottom line, is it should be fun. Yeah. Any work you do, be it being a librarian or, working at Starbucks. If you're happy doing what it is that you're doing, there you go. Yeah. So let's go to theater for a second. Did you do theater in school at all? In high school. Okay. Because you mentioned that, you had wanted to do it since you were young, so I'm just curious if you had any experience. Yeah, in high school and in college I took like 1 or 2 acting classes, but they had a pretty robust theater department, so they only cast people that were in the theater department for anything. So I didn't do anything from the front page my senior year, playing the cleaning woman, until I did a few years ago with Black Sheep Productions, which no longer exists, sadly. I did Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and played Violet Beauregard's mother. And that was the first time in, I don't know, I can't even do the math, 18, I don't know, probably 40 years. Okay. And it was great. And part of the reason I didn't do it while I was working, because certainly I could have, except I was racing my daughter by myself, and she had 1.5 activities, and I was driving her around to all of them. And then when she got her driver's license, and I said, what do you think about me trying out for some of the plays? And she gave me the, oh my God, please no. She was like, can you wait until I go off to college? Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So I think I did that her sophomore year in college.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I did several productions over at Shawnee. And the way I got into that is every year, and I would encourage anyone local to sign up for this. They have a wonderful contest to find original plays. And the first year, I think they had 6 submissions. And I believe the last year I did it, they had over 200. Some of them were one-act plays, some of them are full-length. And they do readings of the plays, just table reads. And then, people vote, and eventually they do some of the one-act plays, and they do one full-length play. So from doing the table reads, I advanced to actually being in a couple of the plays, which, they weren't plays anyone would have heard of, but it was fun because it was something that someone wrote who maybe never had anything produced, and they submitted it, and it was good. And yeah, so I did that for a few years. Though, now that I think of it, when my daughter was quite young, Kathy Kroll, a local dance teacher and just awesome person in general, she would write and choreograph programs, and I narrated a lot of them for her when my daughter and her daughter were like preschoolers or early elementary school, but those really didn't take a lot of time. And we did one that was in Battery Park in New York City, and yeah, so I guess I did do a little here and there, but I must have blotted it out of my mind because of my daughter's embarrassment.
Gotcha. Do you prefer one over the other in terms of film, acting in front of the camera, to acting on stage?
Boy, they both have their advantages. The being on film, they can stop and start. There are teleprompters, which are great. But being in a live play, there's that element of nervousness because you never know what can quite happen. It's like a piece of scenery could fall over. I don't know. The power could go out. It challenges me because I have to interact with a variety of people. It challenges me because I have to memorize lines, which I think is very good for me. It's my version of doing crossword puzzles,
Gotcha.
Memorizing lines in a show. And, as I mentioned, I relocated down to the Lehigh Valley in the past year, and there are a lot more opportunities to perform in live theater. So last year I did one that was a self-written and self-produced with the Crowded Kitchen Players, and that was a great experience. And then this year I'm currently rehearsing for 12 Angry Jurors, which is at the Pennsylvania Playhouse. And what a lovely group of people. Some of them knew each other already. I didn't know a soul. I'm really happy to be included in this because it's like any field. Once you're down there, you start running into people that, oh yeah, didn't you do this? Didn't you do that? And, some of it is the joy of doing something in the arts, but some of it is reaching out and making friends in a new location.
Gotcha. So, 12 Angry Jurors, is that an adaptation of 12 Angry Men?
It is indeed. Okay. And what's fascinating is there is no script called 12 Angry Jurors. There's 12 Angry Men, 12 Angry Women. And it says, like in the notes, if you choose to have a mixed cast, we recommend that you use the version of 12 Angry Women and adjust it accordingly. So I sat down. I had never seen the movie. Or the original. It was a TV production originally, and
I didn't know that.
it was in the era of like movies like Marty, which was originally on one of the television live theater type things, and I saw the movie, and a very young Jack Klugman was in it. E.G. Marshall. It had like this incredible...
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart was the lead.
No, it wasn't Jimmy Stewart. It was Gregory Peck, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I watched it after I got cast, and it was... There was a definite decision in our current director to keep it in the 1950s. Because I guess some adaptations, people do it with a more modern bent, which you really can't do nowadays, because there's a scene in there where there's a knife involved that was in the trial itself, but then one of the characters pulls an identical knife. That wouldn't fly today. You know, it's like you couldn't go through security with a knife like that.
Yeah.
So you're more or less bound by keeping it at least probably pre-1980.
Okay, yeah. And I would imagine that technology probably would affect the storyline too.
Yes.
If it was done in a modern time.
One of the things I find very fascinating is there are one or two characters who are extremely bigoted, shall we say.
Okay.
And they're talking about the young man who is on trial. And boy, some things never change. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
You know, and it's, you never see, in the movie you see the boy briefly, but in the play you do not. And
so you don't see the character at all?
You don't see the character at all. It's
Okay.
just the jurors debating whether guilty, not guilty.
Okay.
And some of the things that are said about people that live in slums, you know how those people are.
Mm-hmm.
And in the movie, it looked like somebody who was maybe of Italian or Greek descent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, seeing that, yeah, you know, just like
Back-
no Irish or dogs allowed,
Yeah.
no Jews or dogs allowed, you know.
Back then that was ethnic enough.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's going to be at the end of March and early April. We take a weekend off for Easter/Passover. And I'd encourage people to come because it's a lovely theater. But like I said, I think my true love is actually being in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they can do close-ups, or, you know, I like having people do my makeup. I did a commercial 2 weeks ago in Brooklyn, and they did my hair, they did my makeup, they dressed me, they did my nails. I'm not at liberty to say the client because there was a confidentiality, but it was very exciting because that's probably one of the biggest jobs that I've done so far.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. I don't know when and where it will air, but it'll air somewhere. I did do a commercial in the same summer. I did a commercial for 2 wedding websites, which made me laugh. Both Zola and The Knot. The one in Zola, I had lines, and you know, talk about you never know who you're gonna run into. Turned out the PA or the casting director, her boyfriend lived right around the corner from my brother and sister-in-law on Long Island. And that's the house I grew up in. So, yeah, I forgot how that came about. Kind of like how I mentioned to you before that I was doing a shoot when I first started this, and it turned out the person whose apartment they were using was also in the movie Different Seasons.
In season, yeah.
In season, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Anissa Smith.
I think it is too.
Because she's the only person that I know enough who would be like, oh my god, because she sent me the picture too. Which I would have forgotten about it, but you bring it up is bringing it back to me. But I think I had woken up. It was was that a shoot that was in the morning?
Yeah, probably.
Because I remember waking up and like seeing the picture and not reading the phone and just being like still in sleep land
and going
what two worlds colliding almost, you know. But that's probably part of the magic of the whole craft.
That you
just
know what,
running into people.
But that's true to life in general. That's not just in the field of theater and movies and what have you. I constantly am amazed how I run into people, and I'll give you a fun example that's
Okay.
not acting related in any way, shape, or form. I was out in Denver visiting my daughter last Mother's Day weekend, and she and several of her friends decided to do a bowling party for Mother's Day. So there were a bunch of us. We went bowling, and then of course we had to save it for posterity for Instagram, Facebook, etc.
Right.
The picture goes up, and somebody I went to high school with comments. She's like, how the hell do I know two people that are in this picture that are from totally different eras in my life, that, you know, neither of you live anywhere near me, and why are you both in this picture together? Yeah, so I said, you never know who knows the people you know. Or I was talking to a young woman when I came out of, I went to go see some talk show, and I was in the audience when I came out. There was a PA trying to get people to come to another talk show. And I mentioned, well, I was leaving, I was in Pennsylvania. It turned out not only did she go to the same high school as my son-in-law, but it was his first girlfriend.
Wow, okay.
And, you know, I took a picture, sent it to him, and he was like, how?
Right.
You know, just, it's like, that's why you talk to people, because that whole 6 degrees of separation is a very real thing.
Yeah, that's true. Well, what was that we were talking about, Isaac, that we're only like 14, we're all 14th cousins or something like that?
Like, we're no more than 14th removed cousin from anybody else.
I could get behind that. I could understand that.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, which does weirdly put into perspective a little bit because 14 may seem like a lot, but it's really not that much.
No.
When you think about it.
No,
you
it
know.
means that some great-great-great-grandpa or grandma are the same.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, particularly when families had, you know, like 17 kids.
Right.
Yeah. You know, on my mother's side, my grandfather was the youngest of 17 kids.
Oh, wow.
But only 4 of them lived to adulthood.
Oh.
But in the meantime, you know, people came to this country and, you know, like I said, you never know who knows the people you know. Or
right.
you'll look at a picture and go, God, that person looks like so-and-so in my family. And then it turns out, yeah, they are distantly related.
Right. So was that, that wasn't in America, that was beforehand? You talk about your grandfather and his siblings?
Yeah, it was somewhere in Russia.
Gotcha.
Some little shtetl, you know.
Gotcha.
And they came to the United States separately, you know, the different siblings and wives or husbands or whatever. And, you know, do you try to imagine at age 17 or 18 just picking up and going because things in your country are bad? Does this sound familiar? Oh.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Like, I know specifically on my father's side, they did something just very similar. You know, certain members of the family came over and moved to Staten Island. And at the time, my grandfather had to lie about his age to become a garbage man, because that was the only work he could manage to scrape up, and he was too old for that. So it wasn't my grandfather. I'm sorry. It was it would be my great grandfather. Had to come over, and he was like well over the age that they would accept garbage men, which at that point was a wagon on a horse in those days of Staten Island, which was rural, like it is parts up here are. You know,
parts of Staten Island are still rather rural.
Yeah, the southern parts are still like that's the southern part of Staten Island is where they keep all of the 5 boroughs police horses. There's a huge stable on Staten Island.
Now, it's interesting. It's in Hell's Kitchen. There's a stable also. It must be the horses that are in thing. But I can bring this right back around to the whole acting thing.
Okay.
You know, you talk about families coming over, you know, separately and eventually finding a life here. The very first movie set I ever saw, I was down in the Lower East Side with my mother. I would have to look up what year it was filmed, but they were filming the movie Hester Street.
Okay.
Which, if you've never heard of it, it had Carol Kane in it. That's the only person that I remember, but there were other. And it's about how she comes to the United States because her husband came ahead of her. And he's become very Americanized, and he's not eating kosher, nothing. And I remember just like making my mother stand there with me because I was just so mesmerized by that they were making this movie right in front of my eyes.
Right.
And I think it was something I always wanted to do, but it was the first time I got to actually see something in action.
Yeah, no, it sounds like that probably reinforced your already longing to do that.
Yeah, and I said, I don't know how old I was. 10, 11 years old, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's probably just figure out when the movie came out and then go back a year.
Exactly, a year, maybe more.
Right.
But yeah, I think it was a combination of that it was a movie set and that it was kind of reflecting my ethnicity. Mm-hmm. And one of the other great things, though I can't sing to save my life, the very first Broadway show I ever saw was Fiddler on the Roof. Do you see a theme here? Jewish things that my parents took me to. And I remember we were in the orchestra, like close enough where we could really see everything. And I still have the playbill.
Nice.
And guess who played the oldest daughter at Seidel?
Who did?
Bette Midler.
Oh, wow.
And she was 21 or 22. I assume that she was I know she used to perform down in the baths in the gay section in Lower Manhattan, and this must have been one of her first things to get her out of there. But my brother had the foresight to ask for her autograph. But I distinctly remember sitting there, and I had no idea who she was.
Right.
And, we all listened to Broadway cast recordings. That was, our parents all had those. You hear Lin-Manuel talk about that, that he would listen to the records his parents had. So I was quite familiar with the score, but hearing it live, and I remember thinking that this woman had the most beautiful, amazing voice I'd ever heard in my life. She was singing Matchmaker, and that's really the only song where she's got any kind of solo in it. Mm-hmm. So it was even apparent to my little 10-year-old self. And 50 years later, I saw her again in Hello, Dolly.
Oh, nice. Where was that?
In Manhattan.
Cool.
It was at the Schubert Theater.
Okay.
Yeah. I love Bette Midler. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. If I could if I could hang out for a day with anyone, I think it would probably be her, just because I bet she's a lot more low-key in her daily life.
Yeah, I feel that
still
way.
Still funny,
with
but
a handful of people. Yeah, no, that it's funny. That list of like who would I hang out with like grows all the time for me. I'm always adding people or people who end up passing away. They have to come off the list but there's still some hope.
Well, you never know. You might see them sometime in the future in another lifetime.
Yeah, that's true.
So what other questions do you have about the fun things that I do when I'm on set? I'm just trying to think. Mostly, there's a big exhaustion factor, mostly because I have to get up really early. I also, during the winter, I have to be very careful of the weather. Mm-hmm. Because you can't accept a job and then it's snowing, though this winter was not a great example. It was lovely all winter.
I know. Eerily so.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say, I can't make it because the bus isn't running. Mm-hmm. No, you told them you're going to be there. I'm non-union. Would I like to be in the union? Yes, because I am a supporter of unions. Okay. But you need to get 3 waivers. It's like 3 magic wishes. And the way that you get those are you might have a skill that nobody else on the set does, or maybe some of the scenes that you're in, you're standing next to people that are union and they need to call you back. Okay. And there are a certain amount of, like, I think on TV shows, the first 25 background players have to be union. If they can't get 25 people, some of the people that are non-union will get waivers, and then you get paid at the union rate. I wish they would make it a little bit easier. I always say there's strength in numbers. Why do they make it so hard to join?
And this is SAG.
Yeah,
that we're talking about. Okay.
SAG-AFTRA, because they joined forces at some point. Right before I started doing this.
Okay.
But that's also a two-edged sword because you may make more money, but you're competing with more people because let's say they need 80 people and only the first 25 are union. I get a tremendous amount of work. So at this point, I've been doing it for close to 6 years. I don't anticipate ever being in the union because they make it so difficult to join.
Right. So if the first 25 people have to be union, will they only hire 25 union people and then the rest will be non-union, or
Exactly.
will they go over?
Exactly. No, they fulfill that because the non-union people get paid less.
Gotcha.
But a lot of the things that we as non-union people get are thanks to the union, such as, specified dinner breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we run over and dinner or whatever is delayed or lunch is delayed, the union people get paid like a little inconvenience bump,
Okay.
which we don't get.
Gotcha.
But they make sure that we're fed. They make sure, I don't know. Like I said, even though I'm not in the union, there are many things, the rate of pay that we get.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone up. The first year I was doing it, which was, like I said, 6 years ago, I think it was $88 $77 because the minimum wage was $7.70.
Okay.
Now it's, I think, $16.50 is an hour is the base rate.
Okay.
So
That's not bad.
it's doubled. It's
Yeah.
doubled. One of the ways a lot of people get bigger parts and experience is student films.
Right.
And I've done several of those for colleges and universities in New Jersey, but I know NYU and like in Manhattan and out in the boroughs and even on Long Island, there are students constantly screaming for they need people. It's unpaid, which is why I only do them in Jersey because I don't want to have to pay to go do it. I always say, as long as I don't go in the hole, I'm good.
Right.
And I always laugh and say, I worked for the state for many years, so I do collect a pension, and it's enough for me to live on. But the work that I do not only brings me joy just because it's fun, that's what gives me money to live on. And some years I've been able to take nice trips as a result. I went to the Galapagos and Machu Picchu. I was gone for like 3.5 weeks a few years ago.
Okay.
And that was underwritten by getting a bunch of well-paying jobs or a bunch of, not of just regular jobs, and I set the money aside.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So you got to the point where you relocated yourself to Allentown. Do you still do work in New York too, or do you mainly focus on Lehigh Valley now?
I do most of my work in Jersey, as I said.
Okay, right.
But part of the reason I chose the Lehigh Valley, I said, I can't go farther, I don't want to go any farther west than where the airport is.
Gotcha.
It's a little bit farther to New York than it was, but the bus service is a lot better down there than it is up here. It's cheaper. It's way cheaper. Also, I hit the magic bingo number of 62 where my bus tickets are half price. At least down there. Up here, I don't think the bus company, who shall remain nameless, but I think anyone who's taken it knows.
I take the buses all the time.
Yeah,
so.
it's wildly expensive. I mean, what is the cost now for the round trip ticket? Like $70 some odd.
It is.
Plus $5 for parking, which,
Yeah, so like for me, like the way I've gotten around it, sort of, is they've implemented recently. There's some sort of like frequent traveler discount. Okay, so now it's not like some amazing discount, but where your average round trip ticket will be, let's just say $70 for the sake of argument, the commuter thing bumps it down to $55. So it's about $15 cheaper. The parking is still $5, but And I wouldn't have even known. They don't advertise it. The woman behind the counter, I went in there to buy my ticket, and she goes, "You're in here a lot, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." She's like, "Oh, well, just give me this information, and I'll put you in this program as like a frequent traveler
That
thing."
must be fairly new, because I know
is.
they have those commuter packs that, you know, it's, I think 180, or it was 180 for 5 round trips.
Yeah.
So if you took 5 round trips, but they expired after 30 days,
Right.
a lot of times I didn't know if I was going to need 5.
Right. Yeah.
Now where I am, those round trip tickets are good for 6 months. And it's 32 round trip, and the parking is free.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, yeah. You know, because the other reason I like taking public transit is I can get a little extra sleep coming and going.
Yeah.
You know, particularly the going. When I'm going home, I'm tired. Or if I have to catch the 3:15 a.m. bus, which I have had to do, I'll sleep on the way in.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, at this point, I know every single different way to get into New York. That, you know, sometimes the ferry, sometimes the bus. The bus is my go-to, because $32 round trip.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So did those buses, where do they leave you, in Port Authority?
Port Authority, but early in the morning and late in the afternoon they have down in Wall Street area, which there are studios downtown, so those work really well. And yeah, which is nice. But, you know, when you're doing background work, sometimes you don't know how late it's going to go. Mm-hmm. If you're doing the testimonial kind of things, or, you know, like small product, whatever types of things, you know, the latest you're going to be done is like 7:30. Mm-hmm. You're going to be but doing background, I'll give you, for example, when I first started doing this, the first show that I did, like I said, it was a mess, it was cold, it was whatever. 3 months later, at the end of the summer, I was like, they must have their shit together at this point. It was an 11 a.m. call time. And they said, oh, yeah, you know, we should be... At 9:30 at night, they still hadn't started shooting. And I took the bus in.
Right.
I know it was a big no-no. Somebody else went up to one of the PAs and said, that woman over there, she's going to end up wandering around the streets of New York if she doesn't catch the last bus is 12:30, and we were all the way downtown.
Right.
The PA came up to me and she was just like, when we break for dinner, when people are going back, just very discreetly grab your stuff. From what I understand, they didn't finish until like 2:45 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Meaning that
you would have been.
Yeah, I would have been like going, where do I go? What do I do? Yeah. I could knock at my cousin's door, who lives in Chelsea, but I didn't want to wake her up. So I went home, and of course, you know, you see those, and you're never going to see those PAs again for the most part. Right. A year or two later, I was doing something at Grand Central Station. 700 people for a girl on train. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was even in a single shot. I had to sit, and I see the PA, and I went up to her and I was like, you know, I want to thank you, you know, for something that you did a few years ago. She's like, oh, I vaguely remember that. I was like, it's not only that you let me leave early, you signed my paper as if I was there until the bitter end, so I got the overtime.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so there are some fabulous people there. Mm-hmm. Speaking of fabulous people, on occasion you do meet, you're not supposed to talk to the big name actors, the principals, and I thought that's because you weren't going to be, it would be really obnoxious. No, they're trying to keep their lines memorized. Right. That's the reason. But I spent one day on a Halloween a few years ago. It was the show Forever, which only ran 1 or 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And I ended up, I was supposed to be the friend just standing there of Blair Brown. Okay. Who I adore from when she did, no, it's not Blair Brown. She did The Days and Nights. Yeah, it is. The Days and Nights of Molly Dowd, back in the 70s or something. But she's done a lot of stuff. She's on the TV show Fringe. If you look her up, she's awesome.
Okay.
I was standing next to her. Somebody with no ego whatsoever, because they kept going, do you want your stand-in, so you can go? And she's like, no, I'll hang out here. That's fine. We were talking about, she goes fly fishing every January in Chile.
Wow, okay.
Down in Patagonia. And Judd Hurst was in that show also. Mm-hmm. And we were in a cemetery. It was supposed to be her husband's funeral. And there were these children that were also there running around like lunatics. And he ended up like corralling these kids and totally engaging them. He was anything that you would think that man would be from parts that he's played. He was. He was. And my biggest get, I sat across from Sandra Bullock and Kate. Oh, I forget which Kate. Whoever was in Ocean's 8 with her.
Okay.
I was seated right across from her for the bingo scene, which was only like an overhead shot once the movie came out. And she was having technical difficulties with her laptop. She was trying to enroll her kids. And she was flipping out. And I was like, I know I'm not supposed to talk to you, but I could probably fix this. So we spent like 3 or 4 hours chatting. And we ended the day when the scene was like, she was like, I will never forget you. She's like, I may not remember your name, but you told me, for one thing, you got my computer up and running. She was like, but that's not what I'm going to remember. She's like, she was complaining about the colds. So, I was like, well, get fleece-lined leggings. She'd never heard of them. Fleece-lined leggings. They're such a basic thing, but I guess she lived down south. And baby foot. Baby foot is something that you put your feet in and you soak them, and then like a week later your feet start peeling like you have a sunburn. And because she was talking about how like her feet were really looking kind of grody, and I was like, oh, you got to get baby foot. So if she uses either of those products, Sandra, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. You were lovely. Because I'm sure she listens to this.
Oh, no, she does.
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah.
I'm getting feedback from her constantly. She's going to be on next week. But it'll be cool. So, yes, we're going to wrap up. But thank you so much for doing this. It was good to see you again.
Yeah.
And
you didn't even know I moved.
No, I didn't. That's how long it's been. And I know, like, I haven't seen you around at the Rabbi's or at the shul
Starbucks
lately.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think, like, he hasn't done the coffee in a while.
Yeah. I think he just got caught up in other things.
Yeah. But no, thanks again. This was so much fun, and
thank you for inviting me.
Oh,
this was
definitely,
great.
anytime.
And particularly on this beautiful, very, very early spring or very late winter 60-degree day.
I know. It's an anomaly. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. You could find more on Isaac Wilson's work on Instagram at when_in_zen. You could find my work and new info on my upcoming true story documentary on Instagram and on Facebook. On Instagram, you could find me at Albert Shivers, and on Facebook, just Albert Shivers, or my art page, Albert Shivers Visual Artist. And also, keep your eyes peeled for the background of your favorite TV show and film, because you never know, you might see Michelle Starr back there. Thanks again so much for listening. Everybody, be cool, be happy, find some silver linings, and most importantly, keep your head on straight. Next week, got a special surprise show for everybody, and you'll hear from us then.